Ready for this? This is live. This could be the intro to the video. We'll see. Okay, look, hobbies are expensive. And then I'm gonna show clips of like skydiving, surfing, and our hobbies are too. Today we're gonna go on a journey. What is the most expensive TCG or hobby in our industry? And then 2, what excuse can we use to tell our significant other, hey, at least I'm not an underwater diver, or hey, at least I'm not a riverboat gambler, or hey, at least I'm not a horse guy, or it's gonna be amazing.
Okay, I like that.
Dare I? You know what? I'm going to. For old time's sake.
Let's face it, hobbies are expensive, and as we journey through adulthood, we have to carefully pick and choose which hobbies that we want to invest our time in. New hobbies are great, and that honeymoon phase of starting a new hobby is a blast. Watch with me to see which hobby is the most expensive, and see if yours is on this list. I also wanted to help you out along the way. As my gift to you, we're gonna look at some of the other hobbies, some of the crazy expensive hobbies and the wild ones, maybe a little bit dangerous, and give you that armor, that ammunition. So when your significant other, your family member, your spouse is giving you the business, giving you a hard time for the hobby that you enjoy, the hobby that you love, you'll be able to give them a nice, quick, witty comeback. I'm hoping this list can be a helpful tool for anyone out there that's looking to get into hobbies like card games, Warhammer, D&D, and give you a little bit of a guide as to what you might expect to spend getting into a new hobby. Let's jump right in. At number 11, we've got Pokemon the trading card games. The tier 1 deck cost for Pokemon is about $79, but if you look at the meta game for Pokemon right now, really the entire meta is about $20 to $80 for a competitive deck. I couldn't find a deck list that was over $80. This is an interesting time because we're going right into rotation, so there will be some decks over time that get a little bit more expensive than that, but it's a really, really affordable game. A lot of collectors open product for Pokemon. The booster boxes for Pokemon are $105. They do an annual rotation. The secondary market for Pokemon is an extremely high speed. There's a lot of people buying, selling, opening packs, collecting this game. The player base for Pokemon is extremely healthy. If you looked at our last video, it's our second most popular game behind Magic. So there's a lot of people that play the game, a lot of people that collect the game, and it's extremely affordable. And next time your neighbor gives you grief about collecting Pokemon cards, just tell them, hey, at least I'm not into pinball machine collecting. At least I'm not into magnet fishing. At least I'm not into witchcraft. Hopping into number 10 on our list is going to be Digimon, the card game. The tier 1 deck cost is $80. The cost to enter is $50 to $200. There were competitive decks in the meta for Digimon that were as low as $50, and the highest deck price for Digimon was at $200. So the booster box prices for Digimon, they're really affordable. $60 for a new release is pretty common. Because this is a Bandai game, the rotation and ban list happens well in advance and usually quarterly. The secondary market for Digimon isn't going to have that speed that Pokemon has or that Magic has. Player base is really locational. In Southern California, there are pockets that work. One of our stores has support for this game where the other two don't. And the next time your dad gives you a hard time for playing Digimon, just say, hey, at least I'm not into cheese making. Coming to number 9, that's going to be Dungeons and Dragons. You know, tier 1 deck or the cost to enter D&D, I put it $100 because you're going to be looking at a set of dice. You'd like to get a player's handbook to support your local game store is always nice. You can absolutely get into D&D for free. There are a lot of free resources for it and communities online that you can play in that charge you nothing. You can definitely spend thousands of dollars on a 3D printer or collection of minis and terrain and paints, and D&D can go in a lot of different directions in terms of cost or spend. But for the most part, looking at D&D on the cover, so to speak. D&D 5th edition came out in 2014, so if you want to look at what we would call in the TCG world a rotation or ban list, we're getting a new updated rules this year, so they're on a 10-year cycle. Player base is extremely healthy. There are millions of people that play D&D across the globe, so. And that's D&D at number 9. And the next time your spouse complains about your D&D minis taking over the table, just tell them, hey, at least I'm not an OnlyFans Platinum subscriber. Coming at number 8, we've got Sorcery Contested Realm. Newer game on the market here, but $150 will get you a deck that is playable in an event. The cost to enter this hobby, if you want a booster box for this game, it's $199. And if you're going to get into Sorcery, which is it's on its first set, you're definitely going to want to get a box. So if you're thinking about Sorcery Contested Realm as a game you want to enter from a cost standpoint, I would expect to spend at least $200 for that first box. No bans or any rotation to speak of at the moment. The secondary market is on the slower speed side. You might put singles up and they might take a week or two to sell. Not going to be the same as like a Pokemon, for example. And the player base is going to be locational. We've got support for this at one of our stores. There are pockets of communities across the US that play the game. And the next time your spouse notices all those Kickstarter boxes that you bought for Sorcery, just tell them, hey, at least I'm not into sailing. And coming in at number 7, we've got a new kid on the block, Star Wars Unlimited. A tier 1 deck cost for Star Wars, it's still new. We're still in the first, maybe 5th week since this game came out. Tier 1 deck cost is going to be around $200. Looking at some recent deck lists, a competitive deck, while we're still determining the meta for set 1, is going to be between $200 and $300. And the booster boxes right now are hovering around the $136 price point while product is still coming out. So if you're watching this video in March or April of 2024, Star Wars is still going to be a really good time to get into the game. It's going to be around for a while. They've already planned, I think, 9 sets or something. The secondary market, I'm going to put them in the greed category. So there are a lot of buyouts happening for the hyperspace rares and certain playable cards. So there's definitely like a frothing, foaming of the mouth mode happening right now for this game. And with the boxes still being $136, it's good to see that even though there's a lot of demand for singles, the boxes are at a reasonable rate. The player base is healthy. We've got communities at all 3 of our stores that are really excited to play every week. So that's a really good time for Star Wars Unlimited, and we're excited to see what happens for the rest of the year. And the next time your mom complains about you spending money on Star Wars again, just tell them, hey mom, at least I'm not into cosplay. I know I just offended 10% of our audience, maybe 30%. Cosplay is great, guys. I'm just kidding. Next up, it's actually going to be the 6th most expensive game on our list to get into is going to be another new kid on the block, Disney Lorcana. Store favorite, community favorite. Tier 1 deck cost for this game is hovering right around the $290 mark. There are less expensive decks that are closer to $200. There are more expensive decks that are closer to $600. So this game has got a lot of hype. The sale speed, I'll jump into that, and the secondary market has really high speed. So those enchanted, those legendary cards are selling really, really quickly on the secondary marketplaces and in our stores. The booster box cost for the most recent set is $119. The rotation and bans are non-existent. We don't have any yet since the game is so new. They're on set 3. And the player base is healthy and growing. So we have new players coming into this game weekly. It's a really exciting time to be into card games right now, especially if you're a Disney fan. There are a lot of options for players and a lot of fun IPs that come out every set for this game. So again, it's Ising Lorana, the 6th most expensive game on our list. And the next time your spouse roasts you for chasing your childhood by buying more Lorcana packs, just tell them, hey, at least I'm not into luxury cars. And going into the 5th most expensive game on our list, the game that started it all. The game that got Kingslayer to open their doors and to put tables and chairs on Mount Herman so people could play cards. That's going to be Magic the Gathering. There's a warm place in my heart for Magic. It is the 5th most expensive game on this list. It's definitely the game people have spent the most amount of money on at Kingslayer since Kingslayer existed, so I gotta give them some love. Specifically for Magic, we're just looking at Commander, so I'm not gonna do a deep dive on other formats. A tier 1 deck cost for Commander can be as low as $400. It can be lower than that depending on how you build your deck. The cost to enter can be as low as $30 to get, say, a cheap $20 Commander deck, a pack of sleeves. You can play a Commander deck. You can spend as much as $7,000 on a deck. A booster box for the most recent set for Magic is $97. There's lots of availability for product for Magic. The ban lists and rotations happen so infrequently and they don't hit most players. For Commander, it's not something you really have to worry about. Commander is an eternal format. The secondary market has incredibly high speed, so cards are going to sell in the store and on TCG Player really quickly. It's the most played card game in the world. That's something you would expect. And the player base is massive. So there are just millions and millions of people that play Magic the Gathering every year, and it's the reason why we support it at Kingslayer. The next time your significant other finds a Magic the Gathering booster pack wrapper in the trash can, just tell them, hey, at least I'm not into Civil War reenactments. Coming in at number 4, let's get into the good ones, folks. We already lost Magic way back in the dust over there. That's wild. Number 4, the 4th most expensive hobby to get into at your local game store is One Piece, the card game. A One Piece tier 1 deck cost, and hold on, buckle your seatbelts, it's going to be about $494 to play a tier 1 deck. There are competitive decks in that $200 range, so from $220 up to the close to $500. If you want to play One Piece, which is really the hardest to find product in the TCG space right now, you're going to have to pay for it because the singles are expensive, the sealed product is non-existent, and there you're going to look to spend about $500 on a tier 1 deck. Booster boxes of the most recent set are about $200. The rotation bans are early announced, so they'll announce months in advance what cards are going to be banned so you can prepare for it. The secondary market has incredibly high speed. I would say greed to the max. Singles sell really, really quickly online and in store if we can even keep them in store. The player base is really that foaming at the mouth stage. They can't get enough. Our One Piece events sell out routinely, especially pre-releases. They sell out and break our website basically every pre-release. That's the One Piece card game. The next time your friend sees you in line at Kingslayer on release day for One Piece, again, just tell them, hey, at least I'm not into ghost hunting. We're in the top 3. And you know what? YuGiOh is back in the big 3, baby. We're back. The 3rd most expensive game, the 3rd most expensive hobby at Kingslayer. is the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game. A tier 1 deck cost for Yu-Gi-Oh! Is going to be around $800. Now, there are decks in that $350 range, and I looked at about a dozen different decks in the format, but by and large, you're going to be in that like $600, $700, and $800 range to have a competitive deck. The booster boxes for Yu-Gi-Oh! Usually hover around the $75, $76 range. There are rotation and bans quarterly. The secondary market is fast, but volatile. So new product comes out on release day. Tons of product gets opened for this game, and singles go all over the place. So they start high, they go low, they dance up and down. Be prepared for some volatility. The player base is healthy, even though at Kingslayer we only offer it at Oceanside. But we're excited to grow that base over at our Fountain Valley store. But across the country, the game's doing really well. There's a lot of attendance. I looked at a lot of data for Yu-Gi-Oh! And it got me excited about bringing it into the stores and expanding on that more in our offering. So I'm looking forward to playing the game and watching it grow. And the next time your best friend sees you in line buying more boxes to chase that Starlight Rare, just tell them, hey, at least I'm not into woodworking. So here we are. There's only 2 players left, and if you haven't figured it out by now, one's a card game and one's not. And I gotta say, one of the items on this list is not surprising. The other one, it's kind of mad props, because we talked about in our last video, we have great attendance for this game, this card game that's coming at number 2. We have fantastic attendance in the store, and they've found a way to have amazing attendance for a TCG and be one of the most expensive hobbies to get into. So hats off to Legend Story Studios for really finding a way to have the collectability and the chase aspect. Coming in at number 2, we have a card game that is one of the favorites at Kingslayer, and it's going to be one of the favorites for a long time. Just had Pro Tour LA last weekend, and that's going to be Flesh and Blood. A tier 1 deck cost for Flesh and Blood is going to be about $800, very similar to Yu-Gi-Oh! Interestingly, almost eerily similar when looking at pricing data for tier 1 decks and tier 2 decks for Yu-Gi-Oh! And Flesh and Blood. Very similar price ranges. The cost to enter Flesh and Blood, some of the decks in the tier 1 range can be as high as $1,500, and some can be as low as $350. But if I was getting into Flesh and Blood today and you wanted to play competitive and really like jump all in, and it was honeymoon phase and we're going to play the game, I would expect to spend about $800. Rotation and bans do happen monthly. Flesh and Blood also has a system called the Living Legend systems. As a hero gets more wins in larger events, it accumulates points, and once a hero gets a certain number of points, Legend Story Studios kind of like promotes it into Living Legend status and effectively bans the cards. The secondary market cards do move incredibly quickly for this game, and the player base is strong. We have a big turnout for this game at our locations. One thing that someone pointed out on the previous video is that Flesh and Blood is an original intellectual property, and the only other game on this list that can really make that claim, at least in the last, if we're looking at just the last 10 years, it's going to be Sorcery. So it's pretty fantastic that Flesh and Blood has had the attendance that it's had and has been able to maintain new player growth despite having a kind of a higher cost of entries. The next time your spouse gives you heat for buying a case of Flesh and Blood on Thursday at Kingslayer, just tell them, hey, at least I'm not into fish keeping. And we're coming in hot. The most expensive hobby at Kingslayer, by far, not really close. There are affordable ways to get into it, which we can get into. The most expensive hobby at Kingslayer, and probably every local game store, is going to be Warhammer 40k. A tier 1 army cost. Now we can fight about this number all we want, but I think you could realistically get a tier 1 army on the table for $1,000. The cost to enter is really anywhere from $350 on the low end. I have seen some deals on eBay or on local Facebook marketplaces or local Discords where people are selling armies that you can pick up on the cheap. Is it going to be painted very well, or put together very well? Probably not, but you'd be surprised. I've seen some amazing models sell on the cheap for cost to entry. But the joke is you can spend $40K on 40K, and seriously, I'd say $350 to $3,000 is probably your army cost if you wanted to buy all brand new paint, supplies, materials. Combat Patrol, which is really like the starter deck for Warhammer 40K in some ways, is $160. We do have a discount at Kingslayer. It's 15% off. As long as you're a member of our Discord. A Combat Patrol can get you into the game. It'll be about 250 to 500 points, and that's a good starting point to get into 40K in the hobby. So rotation and bans for Warhammer do happen on the more frequent side. It's about quarterly when they do what they call a data slate update. But the game is really an eternal format. Your model may go up and down in point value for how many points it takes up in your master list. There are some models that get like retired into like legacy mode or whatever that's called, or legend mode. But generally speaking, for the purposes of this discussion, that rotation or ban list update for 40K for Warhammer happens quarterly. The player base is extremely healthy. There are tons of people who play this game, way more than I understood, quite honestly, until about a year ago. So Warhammer, it's the most expensive hobby at Kingslayer. The next time your significant other smells glue and primer when they're trying to get some sleep, just tell them, hey, yeah, I got nothing. That's you picked the most expensive hobby on the list. What can I tell you? What are we supposed to do? What are we supposed to do to help you out here? I don't think there's a path. Thank you for watching till the end of the video. Hopefully this was a helpful list to help you navigate your next hobby choice. You can find me live on Twitch a couple days a week, streaming different card games or war games. Be sure to check out our Discord below. We have an awesome community that plays all 11 of the games that we talked about. So if you're thinking about getting into them and have some questions, just hop in there, say you saw the YouTube video, and someone in the community will talk to you. If you liked the video, feel free to subscribe and give us a like. Appreciate all the support. We'll see you live on Twitch. We'll see you at the shop. We'll see you on Discord. Much love.